I grew up watching Avatar: The Last Airbender when it first was released back in 2005 on Nickelodeon, and I absolutely loved it. It was a great story, great characters, all about a person by the name of Aang who's 12 years old who's been trapped in an iceberg for 100 years, so you could argue he's 112. But he has the power to control all four elements and bring balance to the world after the Fire Nation has basically conquered the world, basically torturing people as far as we know, or enslaving them or whatever. And it's all about Aang as he travels around the world on his flying bison with the help of his friends Katara, Sokka, Momo, and Toph. But I want to talk about one of the episodes from the very first book called The Great Divide. Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the greatest series to ever come out of Nickelodeon. And how could you not enjoy it? Nation versus nation, people controlling the elements, and a wide variety of strange creatures in this world. Now, a good few months back, Nostalgia Critic, some of you might know him, released a top 11 worst episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And maybe it was a year, I don't know how long ago it was, but the number one on his list was The Great Divide, and he said, you guys are expecting this, or you all knew what was coming, something like that. And that line that he said, I was kind of curious about what he had to say there. So I went online recently enough, because I rewatched his video, the top 11 worst Avatar episodes, and I looked up comments, seeing people actually hating this series, or not the series, this episode from the series. And I was kind of curious why, because I remember as a child I loved this episode. I thought it was, well, I didn't think it was the greatest episode out there, but I still found it enjoyable. I didn't hate it, and it was fun to watch. Yesterday I rewatched this episode twice before I made this video, and I took note to see how my emotions sort of reacted to this episode. And now that I've grown quite a bit, like it's been 10 years actually since that episode was released on TV for the first time. So I was kind of curious if I still liked it, if I still hated it. So let's start with this video on Is It Really That Bad? The Great Divide from Avatar: Last Airbender. I'm MasterFiggy, and this is my opinion on it. So to start off with the story of this episode. The episode is about two tribes. Both of them trying to get through the canyon based off of the Grand Canyon called the Great Divide. And Aang and Katara and Sokka help them cross the canyon because they're always bickering with each other. There's only one tour guide, and he's an earthbender. He's the only one to actually get them through the canyon. And the reason Sokka, Katara, and Aang don't take Appa is because they lend Appa to carry the sick and the elderly across. And the whole episode is just basically the two tribes arguing because an ancestor from each tribe has wronged the other, like from 100 years ago. Now, people didn't really like the bickering between the two tribes, and rewatching the episode, yes, I can understand that. It was really tedious in that. And another thing people didn't like was the whole thing with the characters not acting like themselves. So to start off, we have Katara and Sokka. People said they weren't being themselves in this episode. But at the beginning of this episode, Sokka and Katara were arguing over how to put up a tent and the firewood. And it did seem as if it was quickly sort of resolved, so that it was no real big argument. Then later on, when they had to split up, one tribe going one way, one tribe going the other, to reduce the conflict, Katara went with one group and Sokka went with the other, as Aang instructed, because the earthbender was injured from crawlers. After that, both of them heard the story from whichever tribe they were with, and this is the part where people actually thought it was, they weren't themselves. Sokka was with the tribe with the sort of like barbarian sort of skin on them. Um, he basically took their side because they fed him, and people thought it was unlike Sokka, but I kind of thought there was a little bit of that because they weren't allowed to bring food into the canyon, and human nature, most people will just say, well, I'm just going to take their side because I got to eat. And Katara, I suppose, she took the side of the tribe that she was with after hearing their story, was because they were a lot more like her. And yeah, the same with Sokka, with the other tribe, they would have been more like him as well, because there were moments when they were setting up the tents on each side. The ones that Katara was with, they did it the way that she wanted, and vice versa with Sokka's tribe, or the tribe Sokka was with. And I think it was more with the fact that it sort of brought them back to the argument at the beginning of the episode between the two, and made them think, oh well, I'm going to take their side, they know what they're talking about. And maybe that's why they didn't really consider maybe what the other tribe, what they were saying before taking a side on this. Something else people really didn't like about this episode was the fact at the ending of this episode, Aang lied. And I can understand people being annoyed with the fact that Aang lied and it's out of character for him. But at the same time, as a child, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was an entertaining ending and it was interesting. But now that I've grown, I understand that he is a monk, he's supposed to tell the truth and stuff like that. But at the same time, isn't he supposed to prevent violence between people? I mean, those two tribes were actually, or at least the leaders were anyway, they were going to kill each other with swords and that. They were like battling it out. But the fact that he told a lie, okay, basically, I'll tell you guys the story. One tribe says that their ancestor had this orb. He was running from an east gate to a west gate to represent the rising of a sun, and he was tripped up just before the west gate, and the orb was stolen by the ancestor from the other tribe. And then the other tribe say that their ancestor left the west gate of their village and saw a man down the ground badly injured, and he took the orb to the west gate for him. But he was wrongly accused, arrested by the other tribe, and he was put in prison. And what Aang basically said, they were he basically lied to both tribes, saying, I was around 100 years ago, I met these two, they weren't actually this big ceremony, it was actually a game they played. He basically said they were brothers, they played a game, and the gates were actually goalposts. The orb was actually a small rubber ball or whatever, and the ancestor that robbed, or saying that he was put in jail, he wasn't actually, he was put into a penalty or something like that. And at the end, he just basically says to Katara and Sokka, I lied. And people are saying that's so out of character for Aang, but at the same time, I kind of think he did the right thing by doing that, because telling that small lie helped, I think, the story of this. It sort of shows that, I suppose, a huge conflict from 100 years ago. These people weren't even around 100 years ago. Only Aang was around 100 years ago. And even then, he didn't even know these people that they were fighting about. And, they were going to kill each other over something so small. And, there's loads of stories like that where 100 years ago, someone wronged someone, and then there's like two families basically fighting it over. And I don't think it was wrong of Aang to really lie to stop them from killing each other. If he didn't lie, he tried throughout the episode to stop them from arguing with each other, and he basically did the last, well, possibly the best thing that I could think of anyway to stop them from fighting. And if he had to do a small lie just to do it, why not? Because either way, it doesn't affect them what happened. Um, you know, and one thing I actually found wrong was the tribe sock was with saying that uh, their ancestor came out of the west gate, picked up the orb, and brought it back and wrongfully accused instantly. I found that story a bit fishy, and that was probably my only problem with the episode, in my opinion. Um, you know, it just seemed as if the writers of the show were sort of rushing that in a way, and they just kind of wanted a story to basically show in some sort of way one tribe is right and one tribe believing one thing and one tribe believing another, and that story wasn't really as convincing as the other one, in my opinion. So, is this a bad episode? I don't think it is really. I suppose it doesn't really have any effect on the story, and it is a filler, so I can understand people really hating that, and a bit out of character for the characters. Maybe not. I didn't think it was that out of character. Um, it had some funny moments, especially with Sokka. Um, the only real problem I had was one of the tribe's stories about the guy picking up the orb for the other guy. But one other thing I have to say is it it is a kids cartoon. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still watch the series. I mean, I have the box set right here with all three books in them. I rewatched these recently, or at least the first book anyway. I have to rewatch the other two, but I thought it was very enjoyable. It's a great series, and yeah, as it goes on, it's a lot more mature in its content, but you get the impression in the first book it's a lot more childish. A lot of the episodes aren't too connected. I mean, well, a lot of the episodes are connected, but some of them aren't really connected. They're all just about having fun, and I thought it was a good episode. And maybe that's just my nostalgic side saying that. Some of you who've uh, probably just watched it maybe in their teens or something, like hearing from other people watching it, maybe just thought this episode was bad. I don't know. The comments I saw, people didn't specify that they were a child when they first saw it and they hated it then, or if they were teenagers or in their 20s or 30s, whatever. But I really don't think this episode is bad. But if you don't like it, that's your opinion. I can understand some people disliking it just because it's it doesn't really have any connection to the story, but it's still a fun episode. I'd say just check it out, don't skip it, and tell me your opinion of it if you ever see it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I'll have other episodes soon. I know it's been like a month or 2 months maybe since the first episode of Is It Really That Bad, and I've been meaning to actually do one of these again, but I've actually done 5 different recordings. This is the 5th recording of Is It Really That Bad, and I kept doing something wrong with either the audio or the picture, or even with what I said in it when I rewatched it, and I was like, nope, scrap it. So hopefully this is actually going up on YouTube, and I'm not just wasting my time by saying this. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment down below. Maybe tell me what your thoughts on this episode was of Is It Really That Bad, or the Avatar episode. Check out more of my videos. Check out the first episode of Is It Really That Bad. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.